This is the Medical Minutes Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Your source for the latest news, updates, information, and more from the world of health and medicine. Now, here's Wish TV's medical reporter, Dr. Mary Gillis.
From Wish TV, I'm medical reporter Dr. Mary Gillis, and this is Medical Minutes on the All Indiana Podcast Network. The first case of bird-to-human transmission of the avian flu has been identified, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says. Doctors say a 40-year-old Colorado man tested positive for the virus. However, a group of experts are skeptical as to whether the case was a true bird-to-human transmission. In this week's episode, I speak with Dr. Shaun Grannis, Vice President of Data and Analytics at the Regenstrief Institute, for an explanation. Our conversation is next. Okay, so Dr. Grannis, what do you think about this?
Sure. So what we've heard is that in Colorado, a 40-year-old gentleman tested positive after a swab. I think it's important to note is that his only symptoms are fatigue. Doesn't have a fever, doesn't have muscle aches. Right now, he has very mild symptoms. And in fact, their symptoms are so mild that they're actually wondering if he simply has the virus in his mucus secretions, but he's not actually affected. So it's very common to actually have viruses come into our, nasal passages, and we can test positive for it, but not actually get infected. And so right now there's some question. I think they're out of an abundance of caution. They've taken care of the birds, and they're quarantining this gentleman and treating him with Tamiflu, which is a safety precaution. And this could truly be an infection. And so we want to be careful. We're going to want to track this and understand what happens. However, a key point is that this happens rarely. This animal to human transmission is very rare, in particular with the avian flu, which this is. With this strain's been tracked since 2021. And there was one other possible infection in the UK, and it was the same circumstance. The person had very mild symptoms, and they weren't sure if this was simply a mucus membrane presence, but not an infection. So I do think that is important to keep in mind. Very important to track these, very, very important to, out of an abundance of caution, be safe. But this is the second instance of this. And even when we see, so there's been prior strains even before this with avian flu, even when we see this animal to human transmission, it's been rare. It happens, very few times, and we tend to not see it spread human to human. And so we need to be vigilant, but I think there's some encouraging signs that we will not see a spread.
So they're taking extra precautions just in case, because as you mentioned, this is really interesting that it could be appear in the mucus, or you could see the infection in the mucus, but it might not actually be a true infection. Can you explain that and just break that down a little bit more for me?
Absolutely. So our mucous membranes produce this, we know what it produces, and it's warm and it has lots of protein in it, and the viruses can live in that for a period of time. That's not considered a full-blown infection, because what we consider an infection is when the virus uses its machinery to get into cells to activate the body's full immune cascade, its full immune pathway. And so on this H5N1, the H actually stands for a protein that allows this virus to attach to cells and get inside those cells, reproduce, and create that full-blown infection. Right now, again, it's early, and they're following the individual, but right now it is possible that the virus only existed in the mucus secretions, and that his body was able to, his immune system was able to prevent the virus from infecting, a large number of cells and creating a full-blown infection.
Wow, that's incredible. So we don't know if his body's actively fighting the infection. And how does it happen? I mean, how does that transmission into the mucous membrane happen so that it appears?
Yeah. So, this gentleman was a poultry worker, and he was handling birds, and the virus he very likely handled an infected bird, would get virus on his hands or other parts of his body, and then then you have a transmission. So, it can happen just as easily as that, and then he winds up having the virus present in the mucus secretions.
Wow. So, okay, this is really interesting. It's not sort of, we don't really know just yet. They're just sort of taking precautions and mild symptoms, let's say, right? He said fatigue. So interesting. I'm wondering why they even got tested. I mean, could just be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I just the thought. Yeah.
But what I do know is that I don't know what the human treatment protocols are, but I do know that the CDC routinely tests poultry facilities for avian flu because it's known to be around. And we know that this strain has been around. This year has been one of the largest seasons for this particular virus. It's, they found a larger number of birds with the virus. So they do track it and they do test for it. And they, of course, do have protocols for testing humans. I just don't know what they are.
And so I'm thinking, I'm not sure, we don't know just yet what kind of, you said this is very rare from animal to human transmission. And then, but I mean, what kind of threat, if any, does this pose to poultry workers in Indiana?
Sure. Well, I think right now I would say the threat is quite low. And when I say that, that doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to be vigilant and continue to, test and surveil for the virus. But I do think what this means for Indiana poultry workers is that they should be monitoring what's happening with this and understand whether this holds any deeper concerns for them moving forward. But at this point, again, I think we have a wait and see perspective right now.
So do you think that also these poultry workers to just monitor their health, just be extra vigilant about monitoring their own health?
Oh, absolutely. I do think if any poultry workers or, frankly, anyone for that matter who experiences, signs of viral illness, fatigue, fever, chills, cough, sore throat, we're still, while we're out of the pandemic phase, according to many, we still have COVID as well. And so there's a much higher likelihood that a poultry worker would get COVID than this right now. So if they have these symptoms, of course, I think they should seek out medical guidance.
Wow, that's a great way to put it, right? More likely COVID than the bird flu. Dr. Grannis, any other thoughts you want to, any other comments? We have about 30 seconds left.
I think we've covered, as with all of this information, we need to take a look at it, understand what its implications are, and follow it through. I think we're going to get more details on this individual. I hope that they continue to do well, not develop any more symptoms, and we can sort of get back to our daily lives.
Well, wonderful to see you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Okay.
Likewise. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
This has been Medical Minutes from Wish TV. I'm medical reporter Dr. Mary Gillis. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast and check out new updates every week. You can also learn more at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook.
This is the Medical Minutes Podcast with Wish TV's Dr. Mary Gillis. Be informed and stay connected for the latest news and information when you like, subscribe, and follow this podcast and discover even more from the All Indiana Podcast Network. Now at allindianapodcast.com.